Is marriage then supposed to be this one long romantic stroll? Or maybe I needed to look at it differently, which I did.
Realistically, I expected when I married Joy for there to be loyalty, for there to be intimacy, and there to be support. Those are realistic expectations. But what's unrealistic is when someone says, I am expecting you to make me happy.
You can't get light from somebody else. You can't get it from your spouse. You can get it from Him. Jesus is the light of our world.
And God can do something in your life that nobody else can do. And so when the pressure goes this way instead of that way, it makes relationships work a lot better. Good morning. Oh, don't clap just yet. We haven't gotten to the questions. Hey, listen, what we're going to do is a little bit different today. We're going to be answering questions that have come in. And, you know, the challenge of being in a big church is that Joy and I don't have an opportunity to really sit down and visit with folks. And so with thousands of people that come, it's just impossible. But if we did, and if we sat down and visited together, chances are you might have some questions for us, and we would not know what those questions are ahead of time. So questions have come in. Joy and I do not know what they are, and we're going to answer questions. Now, one area of questions that we're going to stay away from is we're not going to be answering sex questions in here today. And the reason we're not is because Joy said we're not. And I'm smarter than I look, and so if she says, no, it ain't happening, guys, but we're going to put on is our Facebook page now? We're going to put on our Facebook page 3 books that you can read that I got from Maggie Russell, who is a really good marriage counselor, and she recommends 3 books, and so we'll put those on our Facebook page, and that will be a help. The other thing is, with this many people, if you have some questions, the best way to get them to us is to text them. And we may get to them, but a lot of questions have come in. Matt, you think? We're going to put them on Facebook?
Yep. So if you, as you ask questions, every single service is different. So we're not asking the same questions every service. So if you have a question that you asked that didn't get asked live, check out YouTube. This afternoon, we'll be posting all the 3 services, all different questions, so you can watch those for your viewing pleasure. And then we'll probably post it to our MySpace page too. It's coming. It's making a comeback.
Okay.
All right. All right. First question. I'm sorry. Question numbers right there if you want to text in live, and we'll take as many as we can. What are the foundational elements to a spiritually strong marriage/family? You
want first shot? You want me? Okay. I'm thinking one is a strong spiritual family is going to, they're going to have personal relationships with the Lord. And that's, you know, if you can have both parties that have personal relationships with the Lord, that's great. I think for us, we made church a part of our life before we were ever pastors. And so it became a big part of our life. Our private devotions was a big part of our life. And then we were willing, especially as we raised the family, we were willing to stick with the values that we believe were important to us, even when it made us unpopular with you guys. Yeah. And it made us unpopular with some of the other parents. But these were values that we thought were important.
Yeah, for me, I just made sure I had time to read my Bible too. Even when I was young in the Lord and I didn't understand the Bible, I just made a certain time. And Matt was one of those little people that would come. As early as I'd get up, he'd meet me, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to serve breakfast until you can sit here while I'm reading my Bible. And he put his head on my lap, and he'd sit there while I read my Bible.
And he was 14 when he did that.
No. But they
one for Dad. Yeah.
But they always respected through the years. I'd go, I need to pray, I need to read my Bible, and they, right, Matt?
Yes,
do you remember?
yeah, because I never slept as a child. So
That's true.
still don't sleep.
But you remember getting up.
Yeah.
You remember getting up in the morning and hearing Joy had her prayer place. And I think all of our children remember getting up and hearing Joy pray in the morning.
And I think for me, growing up, that was one of the strongest things. I just saw you guys live. Like, I'd get up every morning and Mom's reading her Bible, Dad's reading his Bible. That was a normal thing. They're both praying, and that kind of scared us into not doing anything too, because you knew everything that was going on because you prayed, and the Holy Spirit would tell you.
Yes, He would.
And we told you.
And we told you He would tell us.
Know
the Holy Spirit. So I waited till I was 18. All right. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I want to tithe, but my husband won't let me because we struggle to make ends meet. How do I honor God and my husband? This is not me. This is a question.
This is a question.
Yes.
Okay. That can certainly be a challenging one. I think two things come into play. If the husband is the only breadwinner, then I think she's going to have to respect that. If she also makes an income, I think it's fair to say, can you try this? Because the Lord says, try me in this, if I'll not open for you the windows of heaven. And so maybe she makes it a separate income. She can say, let me tithe with my income, and let's see what God does. Almost like Daniel did. Just give us 10 days, but give it a little bit longer, give it a year, and see if God is not able to do some amazing things.
That's a good answer.
You like that answer?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great.
I think that's a good, I think too, if your heart wants to give to God and you want to tithe, and you can give just a little bit if you are making your own income, God sees that.
Yeah.
So much of the time I know I tithe because I was afraid if I don't, I'm going to really be in trouble. It's kind of like paying off the mafia, and which I'm familiar with in my family. So I'm like, you so Italian, but and I tithe that way, and I put that fear even with them. Did we tithe? Did we do that? And I was like, Lord, I want to give to you. I love you, but I think trying it and your heart being there, it's a heart thing, actually.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Okay.
It is.
All right, so here's a question. The Bible calls for a man to love his wife as the Lord loves the church. What does this look like?
I used to say that to him. You're supposed to love me, like Christ loved the church, and I don't think you're doing too good.
The Bible talks about that Jesus gave himself for. I think one of the greatest understandings of love is that it's not a feeling, and it can be, it's a giving of self.
Yeah.
And so when I would put joy before me, in essence, what I'm doing is loving her as Christ loved the church. And so it's, without making it a super spiritual thing, it's really, in essence, it's saying, I have desires, I have things I want, but I'm gonna let them go and put her first. And so, or put her before me. And that really is
Yeah, I don't think that loving me meant that he did everything I wanted either.
Oh, please no.
Yeah, no. Sometimes in my best interest, he wouldn't, which was a safe place for me because I wasn't thinking things through clearly. But to give to me, yeah, love is giving, actually.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In-law question. Ooh.
Is your mom here?
No.
Okay, all right.
Donnie's not here,
on
we're
the
good.
front row.
How do you handle disagreements when it comes to your spouse's family? How do you handle disagreements when it comes to your spouse's family?
You want me to take first shot at this,
you
or you want? Because this was a challenge for us.
Yeah, it was. Big one.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had to think.
Both Joy and I came from strong families. And my dad was a very strong type A personality. So was I. Joy's mom is a very strong personality. And one of the challenges for parents is when their children get married, it's very difficult for them to take a backseat role as opposed to wanting to still run the show. And so what we finally had to determine was we had to determine what our family's priorities were and then how the family fit with that. So a lot of times family thinks they still supersede, but the Bible says when I married Joy that I left my mother and father, I joined my wife, we became one flesh. And so I've had to look at my parents and go, no, I'm not doing that. This is what we're going to do. And so, and here's what we also did. I dealt with my parents, Joy dealt with her family. And so because if it mixes, it gets tough and you become the bad guy. Yeah. And so I would deal with my parents. And we just had to explain, here's where it is and these are related. And honestly, that's not easy because I've had to look my parents in the eye. They were so upset with me when we moved back to Texas. Yeah. And I looked at them, I said, this is my decision. I am a man, I am a husband, I'm the leader of my family. This is my call. And if I make the wrong one, I'll take responsibility, but it's mine. And so I actually had to back my parents out of our marriage and in terms of they can't call the shots any longer.
And that's not dishonoring. I think for us, it was like we have to honor the Lord. In that situation, actually, Alan's mom came to me and said, you need to do something. You need to tell him this is wrong. And I believe I had heard from the Lord too, and I said, I can't do that. I mean, we have to honor God first. I honor Alan as the leadership of our household, and I can't do that. And I don't think that's dishonoring to them. I think there's times where you have to go, I have to honor the marriage. I have to keep those boundaries clear. Whenever you do something right, it's not always easy, but things get right and better that way. I was always afraid of, but my mom's going to be mad at me, or your mom's going to be mad at me. But if you do what's right, it's the best opportunity for it to smooth out.
It really is a long-range strategy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It works out better in the long run.
Yeah.
What's some advice how to get along with your in-laws? How do I get along with my in-laws?
I think you have to, here again, it's not dishonoring to disagree, but I do think you have to show honor, which means I can respect, I can be thoughtful and kind. We have aging parents at this stage, and I think that you just have to realize what stage are they going in, try to bring some understanding, what are they going through, and address that as best you can.
I'm going to go back to the idea, though, that you deal with your family, yes. I deal with my family, and we're clear on and I really think, I'm a big one for clarity. If we can be clear on what the priorities are and what the boundaries are, then we're going to be a lot better off. And so when in-laws have a tendency to want to influence or to put pressure on, we both had to look at our parents and go, no, this is what we're going to do. Especially if you have in-laws that don't maybe have a relationship with the Lord or have a different relationship with the Lord. You're really having to establish some things. And so I just understood where my priorities were. And it's my relationship with the Lord, my relationship with her, my relationship, what we're called to do for God, our family, and then everybody else came in priority. That goes over huge when you share it with in-laws, but it's simply saying, here's my priorities, I'm sticking with my priorities.
But that's something I remember when we were kids, you set those priorities pretty clear for us as kids, is you're like, first God, then your mother, then you.
And what did I used to tell you? That I chose her?
Yeah, you had me.
We had you, yeah. And one day you're leaving.
Yeah.
She's staying.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
But I have one more thing to that, which I thought was interesting. We had to grow in the area of boundaries. I didn't understand them very much at all. And I thought, well, my parents just don't like you, Alan, And it's
That's actually true.
it's you.
That was
They
true.
didn't, yeah.
Right.
And I thought they didn't like him. When I began dealing with my parents, I thought, wait a second, this isn't them not liking Alan. This is a problem with me. Because when I started standing strong, they had a problem with me. And I'm like, this is a problem actually we have had for a long time. And when you stand up, you can actually have the Lord help heal some things that really have to do with you and your family.
And into the story, great relationships with both sets of in-laws.
Yeah. It took time.
It took a while. If you can hold on for 30-some years, you can make it to the end.
All right. And this is a question that's going back to what I just asked too, but how do you not allow your kids to come between you and your spouse?
You have to be wise to it. You know when they're splitting you.
Yeah.
They come, it's like, did you go to your dad? Did you go, I was like, if you did that in our family, you're in trouble. Yeah. It was like, if you talk to dad and he said no, and you're coming to me, that doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I might go to Alan behind the scene and go, why did you say that? But why aren't you doing that?
Here's another thing, and you can remember this. Rarely did we ever disagree in front of you. Yes. And so if one of the kids tried to start a split, I mean, we could close the doors and have it out. And they'd hear us, but we're not proud of that. But
no, that wasn't good. Don't do that.
But we did not let you split us when we were together.
Yeah.
You were a united front.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we never played you off each other.
Well,
and if we got caught, it was
deep trouble.
You were in trouble.
But you think about it, even with employees and staff now, I'll tell them, I said, we're not always going to agree on everything. I said, you may come in my office and we can talk about some things and we don't agree. I said, but when we leave the office, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And so Joy and I didn't agree on everything, but we would come to a place of agreement. And so what we presented to you guys was a united front. Mm-hmm. Yes. And that helped.
How do you parent a millennial?
How do you what?
How do you parent a millennial?
I could make $1 million if I could write a book about that.
Michael.
That's our youngest.
That's
my.
I'm not sure if we did a good job.
Did you get that, Michael? Did Michael get that? I hope he watches this.
Oh, but that's when we were like, you're getting too much. We started working Michael. And we realized he was so unthankful. We're like, we're not buying you gifts anymore. Something's got to happen here. You think everything should come to you, and this is not healthy. But I don't know, did it work?
No.
The jury's still out.
I think here's the deal. I think sometimes we make too much of a big deal over the generations. Every generation does something that just ticks off the previous generation. That's just given. I did things that just ticked off my parents. They could not understand it. So I think because there's so much media available and because there's social media available, I think people are making a bigger deal. It's generational. We raise generations different. I will say this. What we did, especially with the millennial generation, was we nurtured more than we challenged. We thought that self-esteem is built by nurture. Self-esteem is actually built by challenge. And we nurtured this generation more, I think, than if we look back and go back to my parents' generation and even our generation, there were more challenges involved. Yeah. And so every generation has to kind of work through what their parents did. And so if I instead of blaming the millennials, I look at us and go, what did we do? Because we've raised a different mindset.
Yeah. So challenge is for
challenge goes better than just nurture. In other words, you're not going to be able to protect your child from everything that goes on. Sometimes facing a challenge, facing difficulty is going to be the best way for them to develop a healthy self-esteem. See how popular that was? You can just hear you can hear the
Thank
you.
What advice do you have for disciplining your children?
We were both disciplinarians.
Yeah.
Please do it.
Yeah, please.
I mean, have you ever when you're like, somebody do something? When something's out of order, if you don't do it young, I'm telling you what, it's so painful when they get older. It is. And when they get out of your house, you're like, dear Lord, what happened? I had Christina say to me, you just didn't spank me enough. I'm like, I still have time. So I was like, don't worry. I didn't have a problem with that one.
Let me address a highly controversial subject, because spanking now is just gone completely out of vogue, and no one does it. We spanked all of you, and you more than anyone.
And look how I turned out.
Yeah, Matt was the child that would laugh when you spanked him.
And
you would spank him. Yeah, we played grab your ankles one day, and he stopped laughing after that. But I think the idea is this: if you're going to spank, it's biblical. We didn't hit. We never hit with our hands. We used a paddle. Hands were for loving. Paddles were for discipline. We never gave more than, what was it, 3?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll say 3.
Yeah. Yeah, it may be more, but we would pray with them. We would pray with them. Yeah, we do it privately. No one can spank publicly now. You spank publicly, and you're going to get CPS called on you. But it needs to be done in love. We would pray with them. We would explain. We didn't do it in anger. There are times that I've walked in and Joy says, I am too angry. You'll have to deal with this. And so we tried not to do it out of anger. And then, of course, you reach an age where it stops. And so then we begin to ground and begin to, but we believe that it's much better if we discipline the children when they're under our roof, because we're going to be better, more loving, more merciful than the real world is when you leave our roof. And so that's why we did it. And so honestly, if I had to do it all over again, I would, especially with you.
When you went to college, Matt, he actually said to me, because he got himself in a pickle with finances, and he said, man, I wish I could just get a spanking and get this over with. And I said, that doesn't happen anymore. Life will really belt you sometimes, and we didn't use a belt, but it'll hurt you. So you're trying to stop that from happening.
I had the belt used on me.
You did.
Oh gosh, I still hear sound of that belt leaving the belt loop when it came out.
No, I was slapped. That's real Italian. My mother's like, it never hurt me. I was like, oh, it's hurting me.
So we did not do that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, thankfully I didn't get slapped often. Joy has spoken frequently about her relationship with her stepfather. What advice do you have for step-parents who are trying to build a relationship with their stepchildren?
Great question.
That's a great question. I had a great stepfather. He loved me. He really, really loved me. I was 7, my sister was 15. And my sister wasn't as accepting of him. She's like, I don't want another father. She was very attached to my birth father. I wasn't. And so, but he was fair with both of us, as far as he gave to both of us, and he loved us. Later on down the years, she knew he really loved us. He cried at my wedding. My birth father sat in the back and really had no emotion. But I think too, if you're going to have to discipline and you're coming into a new family, you have to build a relationship. Say, Father, how do I show them that I care, that I love them? How do I build a relationship with them and connect with their heart? And then from there, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, there's an old adage that says, rules without relationship leads to rebellion.
Yeah.
And so before the discipline needs to come in, the love and the trust needs to be developed.
Yeah.
That would be our suggestion.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into the blended family thing too.
Mm-hmm.
How do I overcome being scared of relationships?
You dealt with that more than I did.
Oh, I didn't do a very good job. Even after I got married, I'm like, Alan, I'm still afraid, and I'm married to you. This whole relational thing. But that's where I had to heal in my own heart. Coming from a divorced home, coming from really not strong, healthy relationships that I had, I'm like, I thought it would be good, but...
I think when your relationship with the Lord,
Yes.
that you developed a trust in him that took some of the pressure off of me?
Yeah, I wasn't trusting of men, but actually, you know, the Bible doesn't tell us to trust your husband. It says trust the Lord. It's good if you have trust.
Yeah.
I think that makes you more secure. I think that can grow and build. But first of all, I was like, I really don't have it here.
Well, the scripture said it's better to put confidence in the Lord than in man.
So I had to do that.
It didn't say you can't trust man, but it just said it's better to put confidence in the Lord.
I trust you now.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Took a little while.
All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit. What advice would you give a woman who's almost 50 and single again? Online dating is terrible.
Online dating is what?
Terrible.
Terrible. Okay.
Okay, you do that one.
I got this one.
Okay.
I'm going to say, I haven't said this enough, but I really, just being a pastor for a number of years and watching my own children, I really believe everyone needs a love committee. And by a love committee, I mean you need people in your life who love you enough to tell you the truth. Because love can be blind. And you can bring somebody home, and you need people who can look at you and go, honey, that man's one step below a serial killer. I don't know why in the world you, I don't know. But you need people who can be honest with you and go, oh no, what are you thinking here? And if you have Christina, when she got married when she was 28, 20, but for a long time there, she was doing the online thing. And she started.
You were doing.
Actually, we did it together. It was the most fun thing I ever did.
If any of the guys knew, he was writing back.
I'll say, write this. And so I wrote, because I think like a man anyway. So I'm writing the stuff back. But what she finally looked at me and she said, because she made some bad choices. And she finally looked at me, she said, okay. She said, from now on, she said, you're my man scan. And she would use me to scan through the people she would potentially date or date. And she would run them by me. And I think that's a smart thing. I want the best for her. So if you get some Yahoo in there, I'm like, ooh, no, he doesn't work. And so I really think if you're 50, you're getting back into it again, yes, it's going to be challenging. And yes, online, but just have some people in your life who love you enough to tell you the truth, and they can be a huge help to you.
Online is like an interview too, because you're not emotionally connected, so you're like, no, I'd never do that. But when you sit down with someone sometimes and have coffee and you start to get involved, you bypass all of that. When you see them on paper, you're like, So Christina didn't marry someone online, but she started to go, no, I can't deal with that. Yes. It began to help her define what she needed, actually.
And then she read that book,
Sacred Search.
Sacred Search. I'm going to recommend it again. Great book.
That was good.
If you're looking.
Does that help?
Switching gears again.
Okay.
What have you learned about conflict resolution, and how have you grown in that area over the years? And this is one of the last questions.
No, boy. You want to talk about that?
You start.
Conflict resolution. I think as we have grown spiritually, and I can't underestimate that, as we have grown spiritually, our ability to not make each other the enemy and make each other the problem and focus more on the problem has become, both of us are pretty feisty personalities. I know y'all think Joy's just the sweetest thing and she's perfect and she's wonderful. And she is, but she's strong, she's opinionated, and we have opinions that differ. And we go back and forth. But we go back and forth and it's not ugly. We go back and forth and it's dealing with the issue, not the person.
Yes.
And so when we stop doing you're just stupid, or and some of my words hurt her. And I would resort to name calling. Usually the one who's wrongest resorts to name calling first. And so, you get stuck and you're like, well, you're just stupid, which means you've run out of argument. And so when we stopped doing that and started focusing on the problem, and then sometimes we just have to walk away from it for a little bit. And Joy said she'd pray, Lord, help him.
I did.
Yeah.
Dear Lord, help him. And help me too. But I will say too, you taught me something real. You said you can't win. To win the war, you're not going to win every battle. So sometimes you have to know, I just have to yield this one. It's not that important.
So being married to me is a war?
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, is that a good? Yeah.
Interesting, huh?
And I think it's something you can grow in. And you can grow, you can begin to grow in. And I agree. When it's not, everything has to be, I have to win.
Yeah.
When you have two people that don't have to win, you can get a lot of stuff done. But if you have to win the argument, if you have to win the point, if you have to win, and often that's a function of insecurity. When you have to win, it keeps fueling the conflict. But when you don't have to win, you're like, hey, let's just get this thing solved. And I think what we've found is we love living in peace.
Yeah.
And man, when we live in peace, everything flows better.
We apologize a lot.
We do.
There's a lot of I'm sorries.
Yeah.
That solves.
And quick forgiveness.
Yes.
Quick
Well,
forgiveness.
I wasn't as good there.
No, you weren't.
No, really wasn't.
That mafia side would come out of you. It's like
I held
you
it
holded a
in.
grudge for a long time. I kept waiting to
and
see the gorilla with the shiny suit show up at my house one day and break my kneecaps.
Well,
but that was...
Yeah, and the Lord spoke to me there. I remember one time I'm on my knees, I'm praying, oh Lord, I love you so much. But with Alan, I had a certain tone. And the Lord said to me, you can't talk nice to me and then just be snarky with him. And I thought, well, I said, well, I didn't say any words that were wrong. He says, but it's in your heart. You have something and you need to clear it. And when I did, a tenderness in my heart grew towards him. I didn't even know I was doing that. Sometimes you don't know. You got an attitude thing going.
Yeah.
So.
And with me, it was tone.
Yes.
My tone of voice could be just real biting.
Yeah.
And so when I'm a guy, it's like, what? But she's like, that hurts.
Yeah.
And so just learning to back off of that helped.
Yeah.
And it's just, the Bible talks about giving honor to the wife as unto a weaker vessel. She's not weak, but I treat her like she's valuable. And so my tone, I have to watch my tone, that I can't just snap off something, that I can add some kindness there. And when we do that, just a little bit of kindness.
Kindness is big.
Goes a long, long way.
It's memorable. You always remember kind things, and they can be so little.
Yeah.
All right, last question.
Shoot.
This one's for you. Is there any question you wish was asked that you could answer?
I think if you ask the question, how have you gone from what's the secret, I guess, from going from a bad marriage to a strong marriage? I think the secret, and I think the thing that really resonates most with Joy and I, and the reason we have hope for marriage is we recognize that even though we're together, our relationship with the Lord is separate.
Yes.
And one of the challenges I think sometimes that people get into is they're always talking to the Lord about the other one, not realizing you have your own relationship with the Lord. And when we stand before Him on that last day, there's a judgment day coming. And when we stand before the Lord to receive the things that we've done in the body, whether good or bad, the Bible indicates that we stand by ourselves, that we don't actually stand as a couple. And so realizing that regardless of what she's done or what I have a relationship, I'm responsible for my relationship with the Lord. And I think you recognize that at a time you finally looked at me and said, whatever Alan does, he can't be the determining factor in my life. I'm going to have my own relationship. And see, that's the beautiful thing about it is because sometimes you have people that are hurting because one spouse doesn't want a relationship with the Lord and the other spouse does. You can still have a great relationship with the Lord. Is it easier if you two are together? Yes, no doubt. But you can still have that. Yeah. And when you have a relationship with the Lord, you get stronger. And this is where we have to take Christianity. It's not weak. When you grow spiritually, you're growing in strength. Yes. It takes strength to walk in love. It takes strength to not be selfish. It takes strength to show kindness when you would rather just snap off. But realizing, man, if I have a relationship with him and if I approach the Lord, he will never reject me. He'll never reject you. And I think for us, that's been the key. You know, I always, we're here at the Ark, and we've always done one thing. We've always wanted to make it available for people to have a relationship with the Lord. Joy and I know how weak we are. We know our weaknesses, and we know we're not perfect, but we know someone who is. And because we've had a relationship with him, he has enhanced our relationship with one another, our relationship with our children and our grandchildren and our church. Makes all the difference in the world.